my name is Taylor Chichi, or on the internet as I go by Tay Chichu, and I studied Pokemon, gender, and Twitter over the course of the semester of spring 2020. I wanted to do this independent study because Pokemon is something very close to my heart, as you can see with all the stuffed animals behind me. And on YouTube, that's primarily the content that I do. I talk about Pokemon, I play Pokemon, I interact with people about Pokemon, and I use my Twitter to kind of express my Pokemon opinions and to express everything that I'm all about there. So why did I want to do this independent study? I wanted to do this independent study because obviously Pokemon interests me, and I'm a broadcasting major, so social media very much interests me, and I don't think that there is enough research being done in the social media aspect, as it is just growing and growing, and I wanted to kind of talk about and learn more about the interpersonal communications within social media, but I want to do it in something that I enjoy, which is Pokemon, and that's primarily what I use Twitter for. And there was one instant where I was really quite bothered, and it just kind of was interesting that someone would actually say this to me, even over the internet. I expressed a Pokemon opinion, and I mean, the Pokemon community was very divided at the time, and it may seem silly, but we were very divided at the time, and I expressed my opinion, and I kept getting hate, and someone actually told me to die. They said, "Die please," and I was like, why is this person doing this? I don't understand why, even if it is under social media, why do they feel the need to tell me to die over an opinion over a video game? Well, that's really what kind of birthed this independent study of, do people interact differently in the Pokemon community, varying via gender, and you know, how each gender reacts to, or how people react to each gender expressing their Pokemon opinion. In the beginning of this process, me and my professor with the independent study, Andrea Vickery, we researched a lot about, I knew more about Pokemon than she did, and so she just brought in a bunch of things about Twitter and a bunch of things about gender and video games in general, and the gender differences in that, and the gender differences in Twitter overall. And they were very interesting to read because, I mean, these types of things interest me. Being a girl in the video game world, I mean, granted, at this point in time, it's a little bit more accepting, but there are still people out there who bring women down for liking something that tends to be more manly or masculine. And I wanted to see like how that was over Twitter. So we researched, or we read on previous researches that were about Twitter and gender, were about social media and gender, video games and gender, and kind of that entire thing about, these are the differences, this is what we found in the past, and it kind of led us to kind of to think of the methods that we were going to do for this experiment. I narrowed this down to Pokemon and gender because I wanted to see, because if that person told me to die because I was a woman and they didn't respect my opinion. Gender, especially in the video game world, is a very complicated thing because I've seen women get hate for bearing an opinion in the video game world, and I just wanted to see if it was true and to kind of experiment with it to kind of see, is it because this person is a woman that they're getting bashed for the opinion that they have on a video game? And I personally love Pokemon, so I wanted to explore this within my community, and I wanted to share my findings in the community to kind of share, this is what's happening and it needs to stop if my hypotheses of women would have more negative responses than men would. Our main research question that was driving this independent study was, does gender have a factor to play in how people respond to certain Pokemon opinions via Twitter? And that was mainly it. It was mainly, does gender have the effect of the responses of people for sharing an opinion that they might not agree with, or one that they may agree with, and how they talk to that person and how they respond. So that was primarily it. Does gender have an effect on this? The process of learning how about human resource human resources and research was actually very interesting because although you do have to think of ethics and that's kind of like very given, but you don't want to be too deceptive to the human subjects. But being that it is social media, if you're making different Twitter accounts, it's kind of hard not to be deceptive in that aspect, but that's not your true intent. Your true intent is to do research, and it's just kind of interesting to learn about what kind of steps you have to go through if you want to do research that incorporates human subjects, because there are certain people that you can't involve in it, and that includes like minors and other like people who don't want to be in the experiment. Just interesting like that, and how you're supposed to respond to a person if they say DM you, and you have to have like a pre-recorded message to send to them saying, hey, this is a research account, I'm recording the things that you are sending to me. So that's kind of interesting. We investigated this research question by making 2 Twitter accounts. The 2 Twitter accounts were Luna Lowland and Kyle Hanter. At first, these 2 Twitters, they shared different varying Pokemon opinions. I made the female go with the negative opinions first, and the male go with the more positive opinions, see what kind of interactions they had, if they got likes, if they got retweets. I did poll tweets to see how they responded. With the poll tweets, I asked people, when you vote, if you could please make sure to give me a reason down below, and people actually did that. And that was what we did. But eventually, I started putting the tweets that were on one account onto the other, so the accounts would have the same amount of tweets. And it was to see if you have the same wording and if you have the same tweet with different genders, are people going to respond differently? And these 2 accounts were following the same number of people, but they do not have the same number of followers. Granted, one has 1 follower and the other has 2. That's still a difference, and it goes into our research as, you know, this is what this means. People are more likely to follow this person of Pokemon. You know what I mean? With our findings, there were some things that surprised me, such as people with the male account having more, I don't want to say rude responses, but more coarse responses to the same tweets that were on the female Twitter first. With the female Twitter, there were just kind of like negative opinions about Pokemon as a company, and when she tweeted it out and she did a poll of Game Freak is a bad company, agree or disagree, and please explain your reason why. When people responded, it was more respectful, and I felt like the diction was a little bit more friendly and everything, kind of like that. But with the male, while it also got less responses, the responses seemed more coarse and harsh. And I don't know if that had anything to do with gender. It wasn't the same person that replied on both Twitters, but I thought that was kind of interesting because, like I said, video games are more of a guy's ideal rather than a woman's. So it's just kind of interesting to see that a man would get more harsh responses than the woman did. And also with the tweets, the girl account actually got more retweets and likes and follows, even though it is 1 more follower. It's just kind of interesting to see that the woman in Pokemon is getting more likes, follows, retweets, even vote poll results than the male account does, because that's not primarily what you would see when it comes to video games. Another thing that I want to talk about is the potential dark side of the internet. I didn't see bullying / a very super rude information myself. My DMs were open the entire time. The same person that I followed thanked me for the follow in the DMs on both accounts. I didn't get any rudeness there, which was very interesting to see. I didn't see much bullying, but granted, these were only a handful of tweets that we put out, but I didn't see much bullying or negative communication, even though I personally on my account have gotten hate and have gotten negative communication via my Pokemon opinion, whether it be negative toward the Pokemon company or not. I think that because it was in such a short period of time that this Twitter account was made, that it didn't get like any negative or bullying communication, or it's just because people were maybe feeling good that day, or it could also be because the person has a lot less followers. It might have to do with the Pokemon community, considering at this time it's not as divided. More news has come out as they're releasing new DLC content, and that could be something that's really bringing the community together and thinking that Pokemon's actually doing a good thing, which I mean, I agree with. Not that my opinion really matters here, but maybe that could be the thing that's bringing it together and lessening the gap between the people who are mad at whatever Pokemon's doing and the people who are happy about the changes that are happening. If I had to do it over again, I think that I would probably have more tweets. I would probably have the Twitter account go on for a longer time, because we've only been doing this for about, I want to say 2 months now, a month and a half, and I think that if we had the Twitter accounts for a little bit longer, maybe gained some more following, because the one account has 2 followers and the other account has 1, that might be hard enough to get enough traction, and maybe hashtags aren't enough, because I did add hashtags to the tweets. And I also do think that the COVID-19 kind of had a little bit to do with it, because everyone is so stressed out right now about what's going on in the world and not concerned about Pokemon and Pokemon issues, and that's okay. You know, things happen. Nobody knew this was going to happen, and maybe it's possible that I could do something like this in the future, as I am in the Pokemon community, and maybe I could see something, you know, potentially bigger happening, and I could do, maybe on my own time, get my own thing to the IRB, and hopefully maybe get some new information, because I think it's interesting, and I think that the Pokemon community would see that it's interesting to kind of see, oh wow, there really is negativity in the community, even if it goes towards either genders, and maybe they can say, we really need to change this, and we really need to, you know, get better in our community. And the one thing I want people to know and take away about this project is that no matter who the person is on the internet, if they're sharing like an opinion or anything, there's no need to be crude and harsh. The internet is a very strange place, and it has a lot of people, and if you get a negative response to something, you really shouldn't take it all that seriously. I think that it's a good thing to take away from this, that girls can play video games that are primarily for boys, and just because they have a certain opinion on it, it does not mean that their opinion is any less valid, and cyberbullying over the internet is never okay, even if you have a differing opinion on it. And that's really what I want people to take away from this, is that when you're on social media, you kind of like almost detach yourself and you say things that you would not say to someone in person. And before you do that, I want people to like take a step back. Even though our research doesn't show a lot of negativity and bullying, that's what I had anticipated for the female Twitter, just because I had received it, even though my opinion wasn't like that harsh. It was just saying, I think that this is okay what Pokemon's doing, and someone told me to die. And I mean, clearly not that I took it all that seriously, but if had it been someone else, it could have really crushed their self-esteem, and I don't think that's okay. And especially something like Twitter, where I'm on it a lot, I don't think that people should bash on someone for their own opinion if it's not hurting anyone else. But yes, thank you so much for joining me on this research adventure. Hopefully I can do something like it in the future, and I hope you all are staying healthy during this very hard time. Thank you.